Hi math students, this is our introduction video for our lesson on ratios. To start off, what is a ratio? A ratio is going to be a comparison of two numbers. There are three different ways you can write your ratios. You can write it with the two numbers and a colon between them. When you read this, you read it as A to B. So another way you can write your ratios is writing A to B, or you can write it as a fraction, so A over B like that. So an example of what a ratio looks like, for example, we have this recipe here for peanut butter fudge that says we need 16 ounces of frosting and 2 cups of peanut butter. You might see a question, what is the ratio of cups of peanut butter to ounces of frosting? When you are writing your ratio, the order of those numbers is really important. So when I look at this question, the first thing it says is cups of peanut butter. So that means the first thing I would want is the number of cups of peanut butter, which is going to be the number 2. And then the second thing it says, it wants the ratio of cups of peanut butter to ounces of frosting. So that means the second number has to be my frosting, which is that 16 right there. So I could say 2 to 16. And as we set up here, there's a couple different ways you can write it. You can write 2 to 16 with the colon. You can write 2 to 16 with the word 2. Or you can write 2 to 16 as a fraction. All of these represent that ratio of how much frosting you need with cups of peanut butter to make this fudge. The other big thing we're going to be talking about in this lesson are equivalent ratios. Equivalent ratios are going to be different ratios that represent the same relationship. So for example, if you've ever followed a recipe, this is the combination we need to make this fudge. But you can also do things like doubling the recipe or making twice as much. If I wanted to double this recipe, instead of using 2 cups of peanut butter and 16 cups of frosting, I could double it. I could multiply everything in the recipe by 2 and say, well, we could use 4 cups of peanut butter and 32 cups of frosting. Or maybe this is too much fudge and maybe you want less. So I could divide both those numbers by 2. I could do 2 divided by 2. I'll do this in a different color, and use only 1 cup of peanut butter, and 16 divided by 2, and only use 8 cups of frosting, or 8 ounces of frosting. All of these ratios, they look different, they are different numbers, but they would give you the same result. They would give you the same type of fudge, just more or less. And so these are examples of equivalent ratios. I want to point out this is very similar to the math we did when we talked about equivalent fractions. 1/8 is equal to 2/16, which is equal to 4/32. It's the same math. The difference is with fractions, that bottom number represented your total. Here, each number represents something. So in these ratios, that first number represents peanut butter, and that second number represents frosting. Neither of those numbers represent a total. So this is what we're going to use to solve problems like these below. I'm going to leave the equivalent ratio stuff on the screen, and I'm going to have you pause the video and read through this practice problem here. For this problem, we've got for every 10 minutes Delia reads, she finishes 3 pages of her book. So that right there is a ratio. We are comparing how many minutes she reads to how many pages she reads. So for example, she can read for 10 minutes and complete 3 pages. So that's the ratio 10 to 3. We're trying to figure out how long does it take for her to read a chapter that is 18 pages. So I'm trying to figure out if she reads 18 pages, how long does that take? Similar to the math we did with fractions, we're going to use some multiplication here. I see both numbers for pages, so that helps me recognize 3 multiplied by 6 gets me to 18. So similar to up here how we had multiplied both numbers by 2, this helps me know I need to multiply both numbers here by 6. And so if I do that, 10 times 6, that gives me 60 minutes. How long does it take her to read a chapter? That is 18 pages. It takes 60 minutes. In today's lesson, we're going to be solving more problems like this, as well as just writing ratios to represent stories. Thanks so much for watching, and you're ready for today's lesson.